My fiancé said his family comes before mine after I chose my sister's health, so I left, took back my house. And now he's facing jail time. I too, 8F, got engaged to my partner of 7 years. Rob 29M. In May. Both sides of our family were thrilled about the news, and we held a big family dinner 2 weeks after the engagement. Rob's brother lives 250 miles away and wasn't able to attend that dinner. So we planned another meal just for his side of the family in late June, when his brother would be back for the weekend. That weekend had been arranged long before our engagement, so he wasn't coming back specifically for the meal. Earlier this year, my sister Kim, 32F, developed a serious eye infection that quickly turned into an ulcer. It scarred her cornea and left it at high risk of perforation. She needed a corneal graft, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she had to wait until his return for the procedure. Unfortunately, her eye didn't hold out and perforated on the very day I was supposed to attend the dinner with Rob's brother. Kim's wife was at work with her phone turned off, and our mom was away with our stepdad. So when Kim called to tell me what had happened, I knew she'd be at the hospital alone. I immediately spoke to my boss, who kindly let me leave work early so I could be with her. I texted Rob to explain the situation, and he replied, sending Kim his love and reminding me about the family dinner that night. I ignored the part about dinner was the last thing on my mind. When I arrived at the hospital, I was brought into the room where Kim was, only to find 3 doctors and 2 nurses urgently working around her. They told me she needed emergency surgery to glue her eye, or she would lose it entirely. The issue was, there wasn't a qualified surgeon at that hospital, and she needed to be transferred to another one about an hour and a half away. They asked if she'd need transportation or if I could drive her. I said I'd take her myself once. We arrived at the second hospital. We were told her operation would be at 5:30 p.m. I immediately knew I wouldn't make it to dinner and texted Rob to let him know. He flipped out, telling me I should leave Kim at the hospital and have her wife pick her up after the surgery. At that point, I still hadn't been able to reach Kim's wife. I told him there was no way I'd do that, and that it was incredibly insensitive of him to even suggest it. Then I texted his mom to let her know what was going on. She was very understanding and supportive, telling me to stay with Kim and keep her updated on how the surgery went. A dinner can be rescheduled. Kim's health can't, she said. I also spoke with Rob's brother, who was equally understanding. I stayed with Kim through the operation, which thankfully went well. I got her home around 9 p.m. Her wife had ordered Chinese food and offered me some, which I gladly accepted. I hadn't eaten since lunch. I didn't get home until about 11 p.m., and Rob was already asleep. Over the next few days, he was cold and distant. Eventually, we had a huge fight where he said I should have prioritized his brother and the family dinner over Kim. He told me he was embarrassed to go to the dinner alone. I replied that I was embarrassed he thought I'd ever put a dinner ahead of my sister's health. That turned into another week of tension between us before we finally sat down and, as far as I knew, worked things out. 8 weeks ago, Kim received her graft, and so far, everything's going really well. This past Saturday, Rob's brother was in town again, so we went out to dinner with his family. They all asked how Kim was doing, so I gave them an update and even showed them a picture of the stitches in her eye. I thought the evening had gone smoothly until we got home. Rob was furious, snapping that I shouldn't have brought up Kim's health or shown the photo, even though his family had specifically asked about her and wanted to see it. The argument ended with him telling me I needed to start putting him and his family first, because once we're married, they will come before mine. He said I should just get used to it. I was stunned. I didn't argue. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and left. I'm staying at my mom's house now. Since I left, Rob's been blowing up my phone with texts and calls. I still love him, but I'll never prioritize his family over my own. especially not over something as serious as my sister's health. I'm scared he expects me to spend every holiday with his family, always putting their wants ahead of my family's needs. That's just not going to happen. I'm incredibly close with my sister and mom. That won't ever change. Now I feel stuck. I don't know how to move forward, or if I even want to. Has anyone gone through something like this before? How did you handle it? For some reason, I can't make a full update post on my own page, so I'm adding it here. Talk first. Thank you so much to everyone who commented. I've replied to as many of you as I could, but I read all of them. Just a warning, this is going to be longer than the original post. A lot has happened. TL. DR for those who want the short version. I left him. He's out of my house. His mom is furious with him, and his brother has gone no contact for the foreseeable future. Now for the full version. Once I decided to break up with Rob, I knew the biggest issue would be getting him out of my house. I own it outright. My grandma passed away 5 years ago and left her house to my mom. Mom sold the house and split the money between me and my sister. I bought my current house with my share about a year after my grandma died, the day after I wrote the original post. I reached out to a friend of my stepdad's who's a landlord. He connected me with his solicitor. The solicitor couldn't meet in person that day, but we had a phone call where he explained my options. In the UK, there's something called a Section 8 notices, a 14-day eviction notice. He said it would be the fastest way to get Rob out. Rob could contest it, but that would drag things into court and take months. I asked the solicitor to draw up the notice and date it for that Friday. I had already decided to end things after work on Friday, so that Rob would have the weekend to process it before heading back to work on Monday. That morning, I texted Rob and asked to meet at our local pub after work. He agreed quickly. I chose the pub because it's a public space, and because my stepdad and some of his workmates go there every Friday for drinks. I knew my stepdad would be around in case I needed backup. Thanks Reddit for the suggestion. I picked up the eviction notice on my lunch break. It cost £250, but was absolutely worth it. When I got to the pub, Rob was already there, and my stepdad was standing at the bar with his friends. I sat down across from Rob and got straight to the point. I told him it was over. I couldn't be with someone who gave me zero support during one of the scariest moments of my life, who expected me to ditch my family for his. I told him I didn't care what excuses he had made my decision, and I was done. He just stared at me, completely shocked. It felt like an hour, though it was probably just a minute or two. Then he started pleading, saying I couldn't be serious. We'd been together for 7 years. Was I really going to throw that away? He said I'd never find another man like him. I responded, I don't want another guy like you. That's why I'm ending it. I told him I needed someone who supports me when times are hard, not someone who gets mad because the world isn't revolving around his plans. Then I handed him an envelope. Inside was the eviction notice and my engagement ring. I told him he had a few weeks to find a new place and get out of my house. I stood up and walked over to my stepdad, who'd just bought me a much-needed drink. I stayed with him until Rob finally left, still looking completely stunned. He's always been a little afraid of my stepdad and wouldn't dare confront me with him there. Of course, this is just a condensed version of what happened. When I got back to my mom's house, I saw a single text from Rob saying he wasn't moving out and planned to contest the eviction unless I came to my senses and got back together with him. We are not over, he wrote. I turned off my phone and decided to deal with the legal side on Monday. At that point, there wasn't anything else I could do. Saturday morning, I turned my phone back on and saw another text. This time, Rob said he would move out too. I paid him £10,000. He claimed that's what he had contributed to bills during the time he lived in the house. He paid half of the electricity, gas, Wi-Fi, and Sky package. For context, the Sky bill is only that high because he insisted on having every sports channel available. His half basically just covered his football obsession. Luckily, I had already asked the solicitor about this. He assured me I didn't owe Rob anything. He hadn't contributed to the mortgage or any renovations. Just general living expenses. Rob also knew I didn't have £10,000 lying around. Needless to say, I was beyond irritated. I decided to call his mom, let's call her Sandra, to see if she could knock some sense into him. When I told her what was going on, she was shocked and furious. She said she'd talk to him and call me back. About an hour later, she called and asked me to meet her at the house. Rob was away for the day watching his football team and wouldn't be back until around 10 p.m., so I knew he wouldn't be there. I met her at the house with Kim. Sandra told me that Rob's brother was already on his way back and that they'd have Rob out of the house by the next afternoon. She hadn't even spoken to Rob yet, just to his brother, but she promised it would be handled. Then Sandra asked me to walk her through the house and show her exactly what belonged to Rob so he wouldn't take anything that wasn't his. I appreciated the gesture more than I can say. The next morning, I got a nasty text from Rob calling me every name under the sun for involving his mom and brother. I blocked him. A couple of hours later, Sandra texted me to confirm that he was out and now staying with her. I thanked her, and she said she'd like to stay in touch. I happily agreed. I went back to the house after work on Monday, changed the alarm code, and had my stepdad change all the locks. He's also arranging for one of his friends to install security cameras around the outside of the house, which will be done this weekend, on Tuesday. Sandra called and asked to meet up. She said there were some things she thought I should know. We met for lunch that day. That's when she told me that her ex-royal's father was a controlling, selfish jerk. She said she saw that same selfishness in Rob and had always been afraid he'd turn out like his dad. That's why she had made comments before about Rob being like his father. She had hoped the similarities stopped there, that Rob hadn't inherited the controlling part. She left Rob's dad after he punched Rob's brother in the face. When the brother was 14 and Rob was 10, it was the only time he had ever laid a hand on her or the boys. But once was enough. She left him that day, taking both boys with her. According to her, Rob's dad never reached out again, and neither son had spoken to him in years. I hadn't known any of this. All I'd ever been told was that their dad wasn't in the picture. Sandra thought I knew the full story, which is why she hadn't brought it up earlier. But then she told me something that chilled me on Sunday night. She found out that Rob had been back in contact with his father for over a year. And his dad had been feeding him all kinds of toxic ideas, telling him he was the man of the house and that his family was all that mattered. It had clearly fed into Rob's selfish tendencies and amplified them. Sandra told Rob to find somewhere else to stay immediately and admitted she couldn't even look at him. Things got even more heated when Rob and his brother had a huge argument. His brother made it clear that as long as Rob stayed in contact with their father, he wanted nothing to do with him. He even told Rob to spend Christmas with their dad, since Sandra wouldn't welcome him anymore if that relationship continued. Everything about that confrontation was intense and unforgettable. Rob isn't welcome at Sandra's house anymore, especially after she sided with his brother. When Sandra backed his brother and made it clear that Rob needed to go, Rob lost it. He stormed out, saying he was going to move in with his dad. But a few hours later, he came back, his eyes red, clearly having cried. Turns out, his dad didn't want him either. He told Rob, point blank, that he could live on the streets for all he cared, and that he wasn't about to put a roof over a grown man's head. Sandra thinks Rob is finally starting to realize just how much he's lost because of listening to his dad and who his dad really is. She's deeply disappointed in him, but at the end of the day, he's still her son. She's trying to support him in whatever way she can, but even she says she doesn't trust him anymore. She still wants him out of her house, and his brother continues to have no contact with him, Sandra told Rob to stay far away from me, that I don't need to be dragged into this mess. He promised her he would, but only time will tell. I've got him blocked on everything, and if he ever shows up at my house again, I'll call the police without hesitation. The more Sandra revealed about everything that had been happening behind my back, the more certain I became that I never want to see Rob again. Ever. His life might be falling apart, but as long as he stays away from me, I honestly don't care. I've been spending a lot of time with Kim, her wife, my mom, and my stepdad, which has actually been really healing. I was never particularly close to my stepdad before, but all of this has brought us closer together. That's one huge positive. To come out of this chaos, I'm not exactly happy at the moment, but I know I'll get there. There are a lot of feelings to process, and it's going to take time to fully move on from everything that's happened. I'm definitely not looking to date anytime soon. I want to heal properly and not bring emotional baggage into someone else's life. For everyone who's asked, Kim is doing great. She had a hospital appointment on Monday, and her consultant said her eye is healing, in his exact words, marvelously. So that's been a huge relief. Thank you again to everyone who supported me through this whole mess. I really hope there won't be any need for further updates. So, as of now, this is the final one. Telling my ex it's not my fault, he's homeless. Dated November 26, 20 to 3. So, a 28F originally posted on relationship advice about my now ex 29M. The post and full updates are on my profile, but to summarize, my ex-fiancé expected me to prioritize his family over mine, even at the expense of my sister's health. That's when I broke off the engagement and made him leave my house. He ended up moving in with his mom, Sandra, who later found out he'd been secretly in contact with his abusive father. His father had been manipulating him, feeding him toxic ideas about how a man should run a household and that only his family should matter. That poison got into Rob's head, and it completely changed him. Eventually, Sandra told me she was kicking Rob out. She refused to let anyone who was still in touch with her ex live under her roof. Rob tried to move in with his dad, but his dad rejected him. After that, I went completely no contact. Sandra was the one who kept me informed. I hadn't heard a word from Rob for weeks. Until yesterday, he showed up at my house. I had the chain on the door, so I opened it with the chain still secured. No way was I letting him inside. He told me he had nowhere to go. His mom wasn't speaking to him anymore. His dad had refused to help him. His exact words were, "He won't put a roof over a grown man's head." Then he had the nerve to ask if I would take him back core at the very least. Let him live with me? Absolutely not. It took everything I had to get him out the first time. The only reason it went smoothly was because his mom and brother stepped in. He had threatened to take me to court just to drag things out. Then, when I pushed for eviction, he said he'd only leave if I gave him £10,000. Sandra was furious when I told her that she turned up with his brother to force him out. So no. There was no chance of him coming back. I told him very clearly that we were 100% over, and he would never live with me again. He started yelling and called me every name he could think of. I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave and shut the door in his face. Thankfully, I have cameras all over my property, so I recorded everything in another incident. Rob picked up a woman at the pub and brought her back to their house, despite the clear rule against bringing anyone over. When he tried to sleep with her, she got upset and they started shouting in the hallway. The commotion woke their daughter, who became scared and started crying. Nat rushed out to see what was happening, only to find Rob drunk, half-dressed, and yelling at the poor woman who looked just as confused and intoxicated. Zach managed to calm the woman down and called her a cab, while Nat took their daughter back to bed. When they confronted Rob the next morning, he just shrugged it off like it was no big deal. He didn't apologize, he didn't even see the problem. That was the moment Nat decided he had to go. She told him to pack his stuff and leave by the end of the day. He tried to argue, said he had nowhere else to go, but she wasn't budging. She told him that if he didn't leave voluntarily, they'd call the police. Eventually, he left grumbling the whole time as we sat in the cafe. Nat told me she wanted me to know everything because she was afraid he might try to manipulate me into letting him stay. She made it crystal clear, do not let him near you. She told me that after what he pulled in their house, she didn't even want him around her daughter's toys, let alone her family. She also said that despite what Rob told others, he's not completely homeless. He's currently staying in a B&B, so no, he's not living on the street, and yes, he does have a roof over his head. He's just not getting it for free anymore. Honestly, hearing all this from Nat helped clear my head completely. I'd been starting to question myself after a couple of our mutual friends said I should show compassion and let him crash in my spare room. But none of those friends were offering their own space, only mine. When I asked them if they'd take him in, they all suddenly didn't have the room. One even said, if I had a spare room like you, I totally would. Right, my family and Rob's mom are still fully on my side. But those couple of guilt-tripping friends had made me start to doubt myself. Not anymore, so I've decided that I'm done explaining myself to people who didn't live through what I did. I've been through enough. I was strong enough to leave Rob, to protect my home, and to cut ties when he crossed the line. I'm not going to undo all of that because a few people think I should play Florence Nightingale for a man who disrespected me, my family, and even his own. I've got security cameras, new locks, a new alarm code, and a solid support system. I'm safe, and I'm moving on. I'm focusing on my own peace and healing, and Rob is no longer a part of that story. This is the closure I needed, and I'm confident I won't need to write another update. I'm grateful to have had someone like her who genuinely cared enough to warn me. We hugged before parting ways, and I went back to work with a clear mind and boundaries that have never been stronger. What Nat told me shook me not because I was surprised by Arb's behavior at this point, but because it confirmed just how far gone he really is. He brought a random woman back to someone else's home, had sex with her, then degraded and dismissed her like she was disposable. When she got upset, he escalated the situation with verbal abuse so vile it woke a child. Then he turned on Nat, who had done nothing but offer him kindness. By calling her a slur and mocking her with the kind of sexist joke that would have made his dad proud, Zach lost it. He pinned Rob to the wall by the throat, and honestly, I don't blame him. Rob has never been a fighter, and Zach, who boxed in his youth, clearly knew how to handle himself. Nat managed to defuse the situation, got Rob shoved into the guest room to sleep it off, and thankfully, their daughter somehow didn't wake up during the chaos. The next morning, Nat packed up her daughter and left for her mom's house after instructing Zach to kick Rob out. Zach did exactly that. He woke Rob up and told him to get his things and leave. Rob begged to stay, apologized half-heartedly, but Zach was done. Going by the timing, I now realize Rob probably left their place and came straight to mine. Later that Sunday, Zach texted Rob and asked to meet up for one last talk. They met at a pub. Zach has been Rob's friend since they were 11 and just couldn't understand how he had become this person. After pushing Rob to finally tell the truth, Zach found out that Rob had actually been in contact with his father for over 2 years, not just one like he originally claimed. Rob's dad is, bluntly, a raging misogynist. He believes women exist to cook, clean, and serve. He sees men as rulers of the house who get to decide who is in their lives and who isn't. He's been feeding Rob this garbage for years, and Rob has completely bought into it. Zach told Nat he doesn't even recognize Rob anymore. The man they once knew is gone, replaced by a shadow of someone who parrots everything his toxic father says. Zach tried to reason with him, pointing out the obvious. Rob's dad is a 62-year-old man living in a dingy one-bedroom flat, hasn't had a relationship since Sandra left him, has no friends, and even in a pub, people leave when he arrives. He's that kind of guy, bitter, controlling, and utterly alone. But Rob wouldn't hear it. He insisted his dad is just misunderstood. Zach told him no, everyone understands who his dad is, which is exactly why they avoid him. Because he's toxic. That conversation ended right there, with Rob storming off. The only silver lining is that Rob does, in fact, have a flat lined up for January. And until then, he's staying at a B&B for now. So he's not homeless, just not being coddled like he wants. Zach and Nat have decided to cut Rob off completely. They don't want that kind of energy near their home, but especially not near their daughter. I respect them so much for that. Some people online had suggested Rob might be on drugs. I asked Nat her opinion, and she doesn't think so, though she can't be sure. She and Zach believe it's not drugs, but rather the full brainwashing by his father. Rob hangs on every word the man says and believes it's all. GospelTruth.net also warned me that Rob has a burner account, what she called a burner egg, that he's using to spy on my social media. I immediately set my account to private. Apparently, he made a comment to Zach about how I was wasting money on a stupid amount of Christmas presents, when I couldn't even help him out. That stung at first, till I remembered I don't owe him anything. Yes, I went to a Christmas market. Yes, I bought gifts for my family. That doesn't make me selfish, it makes me someone who prioritizes the people who love and support me. The more I heard, the more I realized I'm completely done with Rob. There's no trace of the man I once loved on my frustration at the one he's become. And a bit of grief for what could have been if he hadn't gone down this path. Surprisingly, hearing that he had another woman in his bed didn't even make me flinch. There was no jealousy, no hurt, just nothing. I genuinely didn't care. That's when I knew I'm free. I thanked Nat for being honest and open with me. We agreed to keep in touch, not as close as before, but still connected. It felt good. It felt healthy, and it confirmed what I already knew. Rob will never, ever be welcome in my life again. My close circle knows the full story and has seen Rob's behavior firsthand. Some Redditors suggested I cut off the friends who told me to let Rob stay with me. But unfortunately, that's not entirely possible. They're part of a larger group. And cutting them out would just create more drama. So I've decided to keep my distance. I'll be civil when they're around, but I won't engage with them outside of group gatherings. Right now, I'm at my sister's place. We're about to watch a Christmas movie to get in the mood for decorating all our homes this weekend. So I'll be online on and off for the next few hours. Thanks again for all the votes and support. Reddit really has given me clarity through all of this. It's easy to forget that not all of the internet is toxic. Some of it, like this, can be a lifeline. Comment from Puddle_Lilac. Again, the misogyny and abuse probably runs in Rob's family. I wonder if, on some level, the son adopts the ways of the father just to be accepted and loved. Rob's father may not even be capable of real love, but if Rob behaves horribly and receives praise for it, he might misinterpret that as approval or affection. That hit hard, my response. I was actually talking to my sister about this earlier, and she said the same thing. She thinks he's acting out in order to gain validation from his dad. Rob and I had bonded years ago over our shared experience of growing up with an absent father. I knew he missed having that presence in his life. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe, on some level, he just wanted his father's approval. I also Don't think it helps that he wasn't abused directly. His mom and older brother shielded him. So his memories of his dad are probably much more positive than they should be. Few people are still checking in to see how I'm doing. Some were confused by me using initials. So let me be clear. R is Rob. I truly hoped I wouldn't need to update again. But something major has happened. I just got off the phone with one of Rob's friends. It looks like Rob is going to be spending Christmas in prison. Apparently, he went out drinking on Saturday night with his dad. They got into an argument that escalated and turned physical. Rob, while not a natural fighter, is much bigger and stronger than his dad. It ended with his dad falling backward and hitting his head on a wall, knocking him unconscious. The pub. Staff called the police and an ambulance. But Rob left before either arrived. His dad had to be taken to the hospital, where he still is. I don't know the full extent of his injuries, but I've been told they're not life-threatening. He must be awake now because he's pressing charges against Rob, because it's so close to Christmas. The authorities don't usually hold people unless absolutely necessary, but in this case, they are. Rob was arrested on Sunday morning at the B&B where he's been staying. He had a court appearance at Magistrates Court on Monday. Since he doesn't have a permanent address and his father is still hospitalized, they've remanded him under Section 18 with intent. This means he's being held until trial at Crown Court unless he can secure a permanent address. From what I know, his mom is already at his brother's house over 250 miles away. And I highly doubt she's going to help him right now. Oddly enough, finding this out has given me an unexpected sense of peace. Ever since he showed up at my house, I've had a lingering fear in the back of my mind that he might come back again and ruin Christmas. Knowing that he'll likely be behind bars during the holidays, I can finally breathe. For anyone unfamiliar, Section 18 is an assault charge. A Section 18 with intent is even more serious. It's legally classified as intending to and causing grievous bodily harm. If Rob is found guilty, he could face a multiple-year prison sentence. Today, I stopped by Nat and Zach's house from Mill Law, Tent's house from Mill Law Saw from Mill Law South, Unlie Sand, and leaves a rich, long-lasting color. Mill Law Saw Mill Law Say collarly/lass, grievous bodily harm. If Rob is found casely cells, Mill Law Say, you'll side celaby sal de see. Mill Law Say, we say they sal me el por 8. Mill Law Say, my bikel my sack, by my mal my sad, I'd sigh. It's a kasad. It's a kanessa, it's a get, it's a cake kai to me, a sick it adds to lips, sick to me, you did I kike and sick a collide, tits to we some the leap pipe and to it right, he took great to go to got them earlier updates to drop off Christmas presents, a gift for their daughter. A bottle of Bells for Zach and a bottle of Prosecco for Nat. While I was there, we had a cup of tea, and they gave me a little update. Rob will be in custody over Christmas. However, it looks like he might be released in early January. His solicitor is working to get the charge reduced from Section 18 with intent to Section 20I. Only learned today how serious a Section 18 with intent charge actually is. It's one step below attempted murder. If convicted, Rob would be looking at a double-digit sentence. A Section 20 charge is still serious, but far less extreme. It's usually applied in cases of grievous bodily harm without intent. For a first-time offender, the usual sentence is a 2-year suspended sentence, meaning jail time is avoided unless the person reoffends. Rob's lawyer is pushing hard for this downgrade, if it goes through and if he can secure a stable place to live. He might walk out free in the new year, I'll admit. It's a little unsettling knowing there's a possibility he could be out again so soon. But I've already done what I need to do to protect myself. Alarms updated, cameras installed, and I've made it very clear to everyone. If he shows up again, I won't hesitate to call the police. And at this point, I think he knows better. If Rob pleads guilty to the Section 20 charge, then CPS is expected to lower the charges to wrap the case up quickly. Especially since the courts are heavily backed up in the UK right now and the prisons are overcrowded. Zach went to the B&B where Rob had been staying and collected his belongings, which are now sitting in his garage. His words, one last favor, to Rob. As long as Rob is locked up, he can't contact me unless I give explicit consent. The prison would literally have to call me and ask if I agree to be put on his approved call list. That is not going to happen. I also spoke to his mom, Sandra, and she's essentially washed her hands of him for now. She believes he needs to learn a hard lesson, and maybe spending Christmas in a cell will be the wake-up call he needs. She has spoken to him, and according to her, he's saying the right things, but only time will tell whether he actually means any of it. Apparently, he's now talking about moving closer to his brother to get away from their dad, which might be a sign that he's finally seen the light. But given everything that's happened, I'm not holding my breath. His brother, for his part, has refused to go on Rob's prison call list, so Rob can't even reach him right now. I'm not sure how Rob plans to make that move happen without communication, but that's no longer my concern. As for Rob's dad, he's still in the hospital with a broken hip. He had to undergo surgery to repair it, along with treatment for the head injury. That's why the charges against Rob are so severe at the moment. Section 18 with intent is no joke, especially when it involves serious bodily harm. All that said, I honestly feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders knowing he won't be able to ruin Christmas this year. I'm just about to finish packing the car and head over to my mom's house, where I'll be staying until January 2nd. But before I leave, wanted to wrap up this whole ordeal by updating everyone who supported me throughout. Your comments, advice, and encouragement truly kept me sane through one of the most emotionally exhausting experiences of my life. Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates, and I hope you all have a peaceful, joyful end to the year. Thanks to the emergency surgery she had earlier, she's doing really well. Her next hospital appointment isn't until the end of January because they're so happy with how she's healing. She's still got a long road ahead. Her stitches won't come out for at least another 6 months, maybe longer, but for now, she's doing great. She and her wife will be at my mom's house all through Christmas as well. They're arriving tomorrow and staying through New Year. Kim was actually buzzing this morning because she's at the football match today, sitting in the hospitality section as a treat from our stepdad. It's the happiest I've seen her in months. As for me, this Christmas will be calm, safe, and full of love. I'm surrounded by people who truly care about me. That's more than enough. I hope everyone reading this has a great holiday and a fresh, hopeful start to the new year.